Implicit bias. Man, seems like that's what everybody wants to talk about these days. The funny thing is that, there was a time when implicit bias was a fringe topic. That was some shit that people were scared to talk about. You had to have Harvard and Stanford and all these people legitimize implicit bias for us to even talk about it. And we still were resistant to that shit then, a couple years ago. And now all of a sudden shit has gotten cracked open, with the recent killing of black people, state-sponsored terrorism, and anti-blackness, and white people waking up and hitting the streets. All we want to talk about is implicit bias. All of a sudden it's not fringe, it's palatable, and it's what people want to hear about. The problem is this: if it took us this long to get to implicit bias, when are we going to get to systemic racism, right? And if folks say, okay, now they're ready to do some anti-race work or some race work or whatever, but we're going to talk about implicit bias, but we're only going to do one session, how far are we going to get? Not very far. We're going to get to implicit bias and that's it. Give folks some background information on implicit bias and then jump to something else. Or better yet, sign up for 3 sessions, sign up for 5 sessions, sign up for 12 sessions, right? Because in addition to implicit bias, instead of implicit bias, we need to be talking about systemic racism, right? Toxic masculinity, right? White supremacy culture, racial hierarchy, microaggression, sure, all that kind of shit too, but we need to talk about systemic racism, okay? So if you're an organization, you're thinking about whether or not you need to do some work, yes, you do, but it's more than implicit bias. We got to go past that, and we got to stop being scared. Because the only people who have something to lose are the people with power. The oppressed people, the marginalized people, they ain't scared to talk about racism and systemic racism. They're ready. So we need to be ready for them if we're really going to center the marginalized and the oppressed.